Large, boxy, but practical, safe and affordable, the Volvo 240 is quirky but attractive.
It's no surprise that a car this carefully thought out should appeal to people who think. 87% of all Volvo buyers are college educated. The other 13% are just plain smart.
Non-car person would treat it as a little boring, but looking at its recent price spike, it becomes clear that 240 is beginning to recover from its unfair stigma, and people starting to review and revive its unique shape and its iconic engine. Launched in 1974 with almost 20 years in production until 1993, with more than 2.8 million total units sold worldwide, it was a popular car. This car also often comes to public's mind when someone says Volvo, and there are still plenty of them left on the road, which definitely says something about their build quality. The success of 240 started with Volvo 140. Cars' traveling speeds kept rising around the world, and Volvo had to make these first significant steps in car safety. And it used advanced disc brakes and front and rear wheels with dual circuit system, which would make them more reactive and reliable. Crumple zones were designed to absorb the impact energy, and the dashboard was built with softer breakable plastics to protect legs in the crash. The steering column would collapse to prevent the ribcage damage, as it was a bit early for the airbags. But majority of cars on the road had no headrest, and the whiplash was a real problem, so Volvo designed and introduced those signature Volvo headrests.
The seat provides more than a place to sit. It can make you a better driver. You can see through it, and it's infinitely adjustable to afford you better control over the controls.
This was the time when safety became the major selling point for Volvo cars, and Volvo came up with this new concept, P1560. It was first safety research and development project concept car, and it featured many new safety techniques that would eventually become standard on production cars. The innovations included rubber bumpers. They had 7 inches of travel space to protect metal parts on the event of low-speed impact, door impact reinforcement, and the new design of the front and rear crumple zones, and the first airbags as well. Later, this and some other ideas were combined into this new safety research project called VESC car, which stands for Volvo Experimental Safety Car. Cars extended front and rear that made it 5.5 meter long helped to get much better results in 5 miles per hour impact. Special engine mounts were designed to push the engine under the passenger compartment during the crash. Passenger of this car could survive falling from 2.5 meter height. The roof would not be pushed in more than 75 millimeters. Other features included anti-lock braking system, backup warning signal, integrated roll cage, and 3-point seat belts which pulled tight during the crash. Also, it had front and rear airbags, headlamp washers and wipers, and automatic ride-height control. The center-mounted fuel tanks with automatic fuel shut-off mechanism. It also had warning lights in the doors and an early rear-view camera that was provided by Mitsubishi Electric that used a 6.5mm camera lens that was mounted between rear taillights and connected to a television screen in the middle of the front panel. It was an interesting car, although many of the new features were not ready for production. But Volvo learned a lot from this VESC prototype, which made the next model 240 much safer and also borrowed styling ideas, especially for the front. It actually heavily influenced all of the upcoming 200 series launched in 1974 and considered later as a well-proportioned car. And in addition to that, for this new 200 series, Volvo created new engines, 1.1 liter inline 4-cylinder, as well as V6 with help of Renault and Peugeot. Engines paired with 4-speed manual, 5-speed manual, and also 3-speed automatic transmissions. Volvo also produced 1.9 liter and 1.7 liter engines for different markets in other countries, and cars with Volkswagen source diesels produced as well. V6 engine was not the most reliable in particular, as it appeared, and not that many of those were made anyway. But on the other hand, four-cylinder red block earned its Bulletproof Reliability label. The 240 was a hit. People liked the practicality, spacious interior and cargo areas. The reliability and safety, of course, were not just selling points. There were many cases when people survived just because they were in Volvo 240, and they were, of course, great commercial ads. Later, at the 1976 Paris Motor Show, Bertone first introduced the stretched 264 TE. It is a 7-seat limousine, and at that time empty car shells were sent from Sweden to Italy for the body extension and reinforcing and finishing, and it was later used by many VIP personas around the world and did so much Eastern Germany's political leadership. Around the same time, Volvo were interested in designing a two-door upscale coupe, especially for the US market, so they approached Bertone again, and that resulted with 262C in 1977, as well as 262C Solaire. It was a convertible. But with adding all these new models, it was still a relatively slow car, and in 1981 240 Turbo was introduced. Its 2.1 liter four-cylinder engine produced 155 horsepower, which meant higher speeds and a slight boost in sales.
Volvo Turbo.
A year later, a new touring car Group A was introduced. The competition car was 240 Turbo, but a very special one, producing 300 horsepower with a top speed of 162 miles per hour. The car was not the most aerodynamic, of course, but it was fast enough and reliable to win the European Touring Car Championship. The 1979 model year brought a full facelift to the front and rear, the most obvious change being the adoption of flush-fitting, those square headlamps in place of the receding circular units. In the same time, the sedans received new wraparound rear lamp clusters and restyled leading edge to the trunk lid, although the rear of the wagons remained unchanged. In 1981, the dashboard altered significantly in order to bring the radio and clock within the driver's line of sight. The instrument pod itself, which had not been altered since 1973 model year of 100 series, so it was also redesigned. About 1/3 of all of the 240 sold were the station wagons that featured very large cargo space. They could be outfitted with the rear-facing foldable jump seats in the passenger area, making the wagon a 7-passenger vehicle. Significant improvements were made almost every year of the production run, and in 1981, with being produced for 9 years, Volvo introduced the 240 successor, the 700 series.
The Porsche 944. The Volvo 740 Turbo Wagon.
But at the same time, Volvo stopped producing the 260, that is V6 engine version, this is what 6 stands for, but kept selling the 240 because the sales were still satisfying. But the most interesting thing starts right around here. Generally, Volvo 700 was a success. It was in production until 92, and Volvo started the 850 and 900 series. But get this, the 240 outlived its successor. It was in production until 1993, for almost 20 years, making 2.8 million cars. And another fun fact, that Ingvar Kamprad, the IKEA founder, drove his 1993 Volvo 240 DL for 20 years and only stopped when he was told that the car was too dangerous due to outdated safety design. The last 200 series produced was a blue station wagon built in the Italian specification and named as Polar Italia. It is currently displayed at the Volvo World Museum. Many of 200 series cars went over 1 million miles, and even more of them went over 500,000 miles, and they are still on the road today. 240 featured in countless shows and movies, and it's truly became this car symbol that opened Volvo badge to more people than any other model. That's all I have for you today, guys. Check out my channel for my other videos, but for now, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.